All right, so let me introduce myself. My name is Austin Beeman. My blog is my name. In fact, all of my social things are my name. I have a special wine email that I use when I'm communicating with bloggers or when I'm communicating with conferences. My blog primarily posts my video podcast, Understanding Wine with Austin Beeman, which I'll talk a little bit about as we go through this, but basically I do winemaker interviews on video, coming out of working in retail, meeting all these great winemakers, and realizing that the average person doesn't get a chance to meet these great winemakers, and it'd be a fun thing to sort of dig deeply into that. It's more long form. So I've worked in the wine business for about 15 years, or 16 now, since 2000, after coming back from France, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. But really, this is not about me. The introduction talked a lot about what I've done and blah, 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 but the point of what I'm saying here is not about me. It really is about this time, the opportunities for wineries and the opportunities for bloggers. Because if any of you have visited my blog, you'll know one thing, and that is my blog's not very good. I do everything wrong. I post a lot in a short period of time, and then I'll be months when I'm distracted doing something else. I have okay social followings, but I'm nowhere near many people in this room, and I'm nowhere near a major influencer when it comes to those things. The point here is not about your traffic. It's not about your blogging best principles. It's not about having this huge social media following. It's not about what you can leverage for the brand. It's about the skills that you have acquired building your blog that at this time in the history of the American wine business are absolutely crucial to the wineries themselves. We are in this unique period of time, and then there are great opportunities. So let me tell you a little bit about my story. Once upon a time, a long time ago, I thought I might someday be Steven Spielberg or George Lucas or something like that. And so I spent a lot of time learning video production and launched after high school a video production business. And I did pretty well. At first I did as well as the ones of my friends who were out working construction jobs. And then I started to do a lot better than them. And then the industry changed dramatically. When I started doing gigs, they were primarily 8mm, 16mm film sitting in a room cutting and pasting. By the time the business was over, around 2004, everyone had digital videography. Everyone had the ability to produce video. I used to be able to snap my fingers and get a $5,000 wedding, even in Ohio, where it's not a great economy. And by 2004, you'd fight for a $500 wedding. And today, most of those people are out of the business. And I learned a very important thing, and that even if you do nothing wrong, the technology can change, the market can change, and you're dead. And so that has been something that has been with me all the time, and I'm seeing it happen in the wine business, and I'm attempting to address that here for you, so that when you talk to these wineries, you'll be able to have some information that will help you. So at the time that the video business was waning, I started working in the wine business, first in retail, a little bit in distribution, carrying a bag, going to stores, opening accounts, and then back into running my own fine wine store in the equivalent of an independently owned Whole Foods. Grew that from about 100,000 sales to $1 million in sales in about 8 years. It was a lot of fun. I tasted everything. I was tasting 6,000 to 7,000 wines. However, at a certain point, you get tired of standing there and seeing the same thing and seeing the same people, and I sort of thought the best thing to do would be, I wanted to go work in the wine business. I wanted to go to California or Oregon or France or somewhere, and I wanted to be on that side of things. But the truth is that I love California, and I love many Californians, but they simply do not respect what the rest of the country does when it comes to wine sales, and retail is definitely the lowest ring of that. So no matter what I knew, no matter what I was capable of doing, those opportunities really weren't there. And it's the same with bloggers. The wine industry loves bloggers, but they don't really think that bloggers are in the industry. They don't really think that bloggers are part of the wine business. And so it's very hard to make what I'm calling the big jump, which is going from some town, somewhere, blogging, working in a small store, to jump into the business in a serious capacity. So comes 2012, I go to some pre-excursions that I had created on my own prior to the Wine Bloggers Conference. And after far too many drinks with multiple winemakers, I heard the same story over and over. That is, we have warehouses of wine that we cannot sell at all. And these were independent wineries making great wines with high spectator, high enthusiast, high Parker scores. None of that mattered. They couldn't sell the wine. And since I've come out of California and I've spoken to lots of people, almost everyone in that middle space is having great difficulty selling their wine. And yes, they can flush it out in a deep discounter online and lose money or make pennies, but they can't sell it for a good profit, a sustainable way. And so at that moment I decided that rather than pursue some certification like a certified SOM or WSET, I would go for the Wine and Spirits MBA, which is out of Kedge Business School in Bordeaux. And immediately in the first economics class, I get the data of, oh my God, this is what's happening in the American wine business. This is happening across the business, and that there are some market trends that are absolutely new for the American wine business and crushing the independent wineries. When I'm talking about independent winery, I'm talking about somebody who's doing something in the 5 to 75,000 case production that isn't part of a giant wine corporation and isn't a high-end luxury brand. It's the people that have to make a living making and selling wine. A lot of them are family-owned. And frankly, I don't know about you, but for most of us, those are the wineries that we like. Those are where the innovative stuff is happening in California. Those are the handcrafted, those are the biodynamic, those are the terroir-based. There may be good other wines from big companies, and there's certainly great luxury wines, but for the purpose, I'm talking about those middle businesses, those independent businesses. And so I saw that it wasn't just a couple people, it was there is real data that is really accessible. If you want to go to a website, the American Association of Wine Economists has paper after paper after paper after paper showing how much these people are hurting. So those of you who are in the wine industry already know this, but since there's so many bloggers in the room who don't, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the American market. After Prohibition, you basically had 50 states that were 50 countries when it came to wine. And the issue that they're experiencing was very simple. It was simple to sell wine, but it was difficult. And that was, you would make the wine, you would find a distributor, maybe a distributor for every state, or maybe 1 or 2 distributors or 10 distributors that covered big swaths of the state. And they would have the relationships with the retailers and the restaurants. They would sell your wine, and you would make some money on that, but you would have somebody else out there selling it. And that is a very simple form of distribution, but it works. It has worked for most of American history. And if you found a good distributor, it would work for you. So what has happened, we've seen a number of trends in the last 20 years. One is the rise of powerful brands. There are major wine companies doing tens, if not hundreds of millions, and maybe even billions of dollars of sales. And we all know who they are, I'm not going to name them. But I know many people who work there, and the way in which that business works, you have very powerful, very ruthless, very smart people whose job it is to sell wine as if it was Coca-Cola or an industrial widget. And they're winning because the wineries that we like have no idea how to do the business of wine. And the people that know about winemaking make the best wine. The people that know about wine business get to sell it. And so right now, about 4 brands hold 80 to 90% of the entire American wine market. And now you have also a consolidation of distribution. There are far less distributors today than there were 20 years ago, which means that unless you're a big winery, you're not going to get noticed or picked up, or you're not going to be relevant. So your distribution to market is getting much, much weaker. And of course, there's been a consolidation of retail. The sort of superstores, the Walmarts. I believe that Costco is the #1 seller of wine in the United States. Whole Foods, Total Wine, you name the big chain. They have incredible power. They force prices down. And when you need to sell into that number of stores, you can't deal with a little guy doing 20,000 cases. It just doesn't make any sense for Whole Foods or Walmart or Costco to do that. So you're seeing wholesale distribution. When I was with the MBA in Australia, I saw sort of the state of the Australian market, where essentially two major brands run everything. But two things have happened that are good for these wineries. One, the rise of the internet has allowed them to be in personal communication via social media, via emails, via live streaming, all sorts of things like that, that allow them to build a personal relationship. And there has been a liberalization of wine shipping laws, so that you can ship into more states easier, and people are becoming more accepting. We all buy stuff from Amazon. You get in this mindset that it's okay to purchase things online and have them shipped to your house. There's still a lot of legal complexities to that, but it's never really been better in the modern era for people to purchase a wine through their smartphone or online and have it shipped to them. So now we're talking about sort of the skills that bloggers have acquired. You talk about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's specific skill set of being great about basketball has made him an unimaginable fortune. But at almost any other time in all of recorded history, that skill set would have been nothing, would have mattered not at all. So not only do you have to have the skill set, but you have to have the skill set that connects with the time in which you are living. And the skill set that bloggers are creating, running their own blogs, mostly pro bono, let's be honest, are the same skill sets that can be turned into jobs, into consulting, into real revenue. Because frankly, let's be honest, most people will probably never monetize their blog. The best most bloggers can hope for is free samples and some cool press trips. There's going to be that 1% that goes and makes a whole career, but if you look at so many of the people that have made it, they've made it by paying wine gigs for magazines, or consulting, or working for a brand, for a region. Not many people are going to build the kind of traffic that you need to monetize with ads or something like that. You might have to write a book, you might have to do all these things, and still you're going to struggle to make that middle class lifestyle that most people want and that is normal. So when I'm not talking that we're going to come out and have Michael Jordan style wealth, but I'm saying that if you want a middle class lifestyle in the wine business using these skills, that this is a time when that is a possibility for you in a way that it would not have been 10 years ago and may not be 10 years from now if we don't get in early. The reason this is there is the idea of direct-to-consumer sales. If you buy a bottle of wine in a store, the person that makes the most money on that is the store. And that's just the truth. It's something like a third in most stores of the price that you pay is going to that store, because whoever has access to the customer gets to make the most money. That's one of the just fundamental rules of business. The distributor gets a slug of that. If it's coming from out of the country, the importer gets a slug of that. Sometimes there's brokers, they get a slug. The person who tends to get the least out of it is the winery themselves. And they're the ones who took the most risk, and they're the ones who had the highest costs. What changes is that when you sell direct to consumers, yes, there's going to be shipping costs, yes, there are expenses involved in that, but you're making all of that revenue. You're making the revenue that the store would have made. You're making the revenue that the importer or the distributor would have made. And so for these small wineries that sell less wine, that aren't getting the good distribution, that are getting their prices forced down by the big distributors, by the big retailers, if you can sell to that individual, you have the potential to thrive and survive, frankly, because a lot of wineries, especially the ones that we like, those independent wineries, they are not making fortunes. They may have a lot of money sunk in land, so technically on the books they're wealthy, but they're not really. And so there are three types of direct-to-consumer sales. There is the tasting room, which is what most wineries think about because they're used to hospitality type things. There is the wine club, where there are recurring shipments. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And there is e-commerce. And right now, most wineries have absolutely no thought to the e-commerce side of the business. And again, they're in a space where they're looking at hospitality, because most of the top wineries in California are very close to San Francisco and Silicon Valley. There's an unparalleled amount of wealth there. But we know from history, there will be a time when that will not be a wealthy area. I come from Toledo, Ohio. Detroit was Silicon Valley before Silicon Valley was Silicon Valley. It's not a matter of if something falls, it's a matter of when. And again, having spent some time recently in China, they are gunning. They do not want to be only where stuff is manufactured. They don't just want Detroit's business. Believe me, they want to have that high-end tech business. And they're doing incredibly well in that space. So I'm not saying that tomorrow Silicon Valley is going to collapse, become Detroit, and have fires and 70% of your population gone. But what I'm saying is that the entire DTC business for most wineries is based on an ultra-wealthy, ultra-young clientele walking in the front door. Okay, when that goes away, what do you have? When that even goes down, what do you have? The answer is you have the rest of the country. The amount of money outside of Silicon Valley is greater than the amount of money inside of Silicon Valley. There's a lot of people, and if you can connect with them, you can now sell to them. There are very, very few states where you cannot ship them wine. If you are communicating, if you are talking about these things, if you're doing social media funnel, content marketing, relationship building with club members, if you're doing all of those things, you can succeed in this direct consumer space. And frankly, that is what bloggers have been learning. We have been playing in the minor leagues, working for pennies, attempting to building up these skills, learning what a community is, learning what I need to post, how I need to post, staying on the cutting edge of tech, experimenting with that, staying first. Bloggers from all over this country are right there learning these things that can be turned into actual businesses, that can be turned into actual jobs, that can be consultants, that can be employees. All of these things are possible and can be done. Now, none of what I'm saying says that you have to do it. If you're very happy with your life, if you're in a part of the country with a family and multiple kids and all these things, you may not be able to just pick up and move to Lodi, move to Napa, but you can. They need you. If they don't, they're going to die. They don't know how to do this well. And the reason is that farmers make the best wine. We all basically know that. I mean, I just got my MBA, but MBAs don't make the best wine. Artists don't make the best wine. You know, celebrities who fly in on a helicopter to their winery don't make the best wine. Farmers make the best wine, but the farmer temperament does not innovate. Farmers don't innovate because if you fail and your crop dies, your family starves. The type of people, the type of families, they just don't innovate. They need to bring people who do innovate in. And deep down, a lot of them know this and don't know how. And so in a lot of companies, it's the 21, 22-year-old who's good at computers that is given these positions. Or it's some grizzled marketing executive who just, it's a different world. It's a completely different world for them. Or they bring in somebody who just doesn't think, or like a consultant who's very, very expensive. Because one of the things you have to do if you're doing this is you have to make sure that the cost is low. And it's almost always better to hire a person than it is for them to bring in a consultant for these things. So, I mean, and also tasting room managers. They think that because a person is doing the direct consumer sales, in their tasting room and they're a restaurant person, they've got great hospitality skills, and all that is wonderful. But because you have great hospitality skills does not mean that you're on the cutting edge of tech, that you know about content marketing, that you can write, you can make photos, you can do videos, you know social media, you know how to build these communities. It doesn't mean that. They need these people. You can be these people. And now is the time to think about it. Because now is the time that these wineries are at the most risk. The wineries know they need you. I've said that many times. Think about this conference for a second. Think about what you paid. Think about what you got. Think about the fact that you had winemakers here during harvest, not doing harvest, talking to us. What? You know, for the tweets that we do, for the things that we put out there, yeah, there's great value to that, and they're desperate. They know it. They can't say it because it doesn't have a good image. But I can say it. I can tell you. They know that there's a problem. They know we can help it. That's why they want the conference to come here. That's why, you know, Sonoma wants the conference to come there. That's why everybody wants this. They know they need this, and they don't know that they can just reach out and say, come. Here's some money. Come. That's how we're going to monetize. That's how so many of us are going to make it. That is what happened to me with Bonnie Doon. I sat down talking to Randall Graham, drinking wine, talking about his business, and he's like, oh my God, I need you. Come. And I came out, and I worked on this stuff, and we did so much interesting stuff. But he's not alone. He saw it, and that's great. He's seen a lot of things before they come to the rest of the people see them. But everyone is starting to see it now. And you may have to be the one that brings it up. You may have to be, how's your direct-to-consumer business? Is it great? Are you wonderful? Is everything fine? No problems? Or can you use some help? And for most of us who live anywhere other than the Bay Area, we're not going to cost what those guys, what a social media expert who has worked at Google is going to cost. We're going to be able to come in, get a great amount of money for us, and be half of what somebody who has to pay a California rent is going to ask for. So the opportunity is so big. The chances are so big right now. And if there's a winery that you love and you approach them and they don't get it, pass. They're not feeling the pain yet. Go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Don't just say, I'm going to work with this one and this one. No. Somebody out there, they might be in the Santa Cruz Mountain Range, they might be in the Carmel Valley, they might be in the Finger Lakes, but there's somebody who knows they need you and is willing to step up. Find them. If you want this, you can have this. And people are already doing this. I don't use people's names because I think it's unfair to them, but in the year that I've spent out here in California, as I have visited as many tasting rooms as I can every weekend, getting out and tasting and having a great time, I start talking and like, oh, you have a blog? I had a blog too. I came out to pick grapes during harvest and they hired me. I know of at least 12 people in Napa who are working for wineries, making good money, who come from places like Oklahoma and Kentucky and West Virginia, who had a blog with 500 viewers, who called us on winery and said, I'd love to come work harvest, and then got hired and getting paid $65,000 a year or more. It is happening. It is just quiet. And because there's a whole lot of people who just think that if I tell people, then it will go away and it won't be there for me. But there's hundreds of thousands of wineries, all of which want something. We could place everyone at this conference somewhere with a winery, and it would be great. And there would still be 1,000 options out there. So if this is what you want, if this is your dream, if this is something you want to experience, this is the 5-year window to reach out and take it. Now the wineries you're going to work for are going to be wineries for the most part that are not very well known. You know, you're not going to work for the big wineries. A lot of the wineries you think are medium-sized are actually owned by large companies. You're going to have to play around a little bit. This is not going to be easy. It's work. That's what gets you paid. You have to work for stuff. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about, I did a lot of research into this for my MBA thesis. about how new media is being used by wineries. I interviewed a number of wineries from all over the country, up and down the West Coast and in different places, and just have 5 real takeaways that it's good to put in the back of your head, something to think about. And that is, medium-sized wineries, between 20 and 75,000 cases, they need this the most, and they're the worst at it, because they have big businesses to run, they have small staffs, and they don't have the time to learn this stuff. And so they tend to just hand it off again to that 22-year-old tech guy who doesn't have any clue. And they need it the most because they have more product to sell and they have far more costs. Number 2 is that great new media use grows your DTC even when you don't want it. I interviewed a winery where they sell everything they make through wholesale distribution on day one. They're an allocated company. So you would think that they would be totally fine. They also produce really excellent quality new media. And what they found is that they're intentionally having to hold back a percentage of their production because the demand to buy from them is higher than they want because of their new media success. That even though they as a business don't want to sell DTC at higher profit margins, I don't know why, but they don't, even though they don't want to do that, they're being forced to do that. And this guy was talking about having to produce special labels just to sell online because their excellent social media was forcing their online sales up. Okay. Using everything but not having a business strategy doesn't get results. People who are doing every bit of social media, everything out there, but don't have any idea why they're doing any of it. When I interviewed people who couldn't talk intelligently about the platforms, didn't see the increase in sales value, volume, or DTC at all. They fell far below industry averages. And so you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. And again, that's where you as a blogger can bring something special. Because you've been building your own business on your own blog for a long time now. You know why you do what you do. You know why you write what you write. Or you should. And so you can use that for these wineries and say, yeah, you're doing all these things, but how about we do 2 or 3 of them that really will help your business, help you sell wine, help you sell direct to consumer. And then the category of not California is winning the direct consumer new media game. There is a benefit to your sales to be able to put California on the label. Everybody else is at something of a disadvantage. But the wonderful thing is the wineries in California at multiple sizes that I interviewed, almost every one of them had difficulty intelligently speaking about new media. But when I interviewed wineries from the Midwest, from the East Coast, from the South, from the other Western states that aren't California, they tended to know this so much better. And so you may want to target some other places first because they know why they're doing it, they have a good idea, and they may be more receptive. You have better results in Washington, Oregon than you have in Napa. And you may have better results in Anderson Valley or Santa Barbara than you have in Napa or Sonoma. You may have better results in Lodi. So think about that. Don't get locked into it has to be California or it has to be Napa or Sonoma. And then the last thing that I discovered in the research was that wineries that knew who they were and knew who their customers were, and I don't mean demographic data, but I mean sort of experiential data, they had more success. So the people that said, I can't write well, so I do photos and video, because I know I can't write well, were killing it. The people who are like, I don't have the time to edit a video. I want to do Vine. I want to do 6-second videos. We're killing it. The people who were like, yeah, I don't think this is right for my company, but I have to do it because that's what millennials want, we're failing miserably. We're not getting the results that they need. So that's just a little bit about this, what I call the big jar. Almost all the wines that we like, almost all these independent wineries are special and unique in some way. So they just really need to tell the story, and they really need you guys to tell the story. And if you want to make that transition, this is the time, and you can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you all for getting up in the morning and coming to see me. I really appreciate it.